Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundtable. I'm Chris Bell, delighted to say joining me, as always, are Stephen Downs and Gareth Walker. And we're also joined by chappers Josh Chapman, who is the media man at Steeton AFC of the Northwest Counties and general local non-league guru. How are we, gents? Are we all well?
Yeah, good.
Thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I think it's important to point out as well that Chappers has joined us on his commute home from work and is currently stood in Keighley Town Centre. The joys of sports media, Chappers. This is what it's all about for you.
Oh, nailed on. Just what you want. A nice long day in the office at work, and then straight over at Steeton for the club AGM. And now, on my way home. Unfortunately, got caught short by the joys of public transport, but I'm joining you from the lovely scenic Keighley Town Centre. So,
well, I think you should be live like a live BBC reporter and get people's opinions on the topics that we're going to be talking about, chappers. Well, I think you should be. Just go up to some random woman coming out of like Tesco. What do you think at Steeton AGM?
Well, actually, it is quite apt, to be fair, that you are in Keighley Town Centre because that is a very big part of where we're going to start with the non-league stuff tonight. And Eccleshill United, who, of course, are a Bradford club, have announced in the last couple of days, I'll bring the statement up and go through it as well, that they are planning to move away from their Kingsway Stadium and make the move to Cougar Park to ground share with the Keighley Cougars rugby team. Now, of course, chappers, one of the reasons for bringing you on is that Steeton themselves had a ground share at Cougar Park, was it the 18-19 season? Before that, Steeton AFC, whilst they were renovating their Keighley Road ground, I think we're there for, 5 or 6 years, or maybe a little bit more. I mean, from your point of view, history seems to tell us anyway that ground shares at Cougar Park, and I hate to say it, football clubs in Keighley, it's a real struggle.
it is. And, I worked for the Cougars for a long time as well. So I am fully aware of the troubles that Cougar Park can bring. The pitch doesn't meet the minimum requirements for the FA. I know they've just extended it because it needed to meet the minimum requirements for the RFL, but I understand it's still too short for the FA. There's still the ongoing issues with the stand. They've been looking to pull that wooden stand down and build the new stand for 3-4 years, but COVID and funding issues have prevented that. It's a bizarre one. It's never really worked for football in Keighley at the sports ground of the town, if you will. Silson had to go and get their own ground in the village. We've had to move on to Marley. It's going to be interesting to see, especially, Eccleshill are a team who has struggled to get crowds in their own village and the neighbouring village in Wrose, where the ground was. It's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of tap into the Keighley market. I know we've averaged about 110 at Steeton. Silson averaged about 200. But Route 1, they were down at Marley for 3 seasons. They've struggled to get crowds in. So I don't know what the future holds for Eccleshill. I don't know what the future holds for the Keighley Cougars and how that partnership's going to work at Cougar Park. But yeah, it's a very interesting development, and one I think that's caught a lot of people off guard.
I'm not going to lie. I, frankly, am a little bit devastated because Wednesday nights is kind of Eccleshill's usual midweek fixture night, and for me, it's on my doorstep. I am part of, I guess, that community that Eccleshill United as a football club serves. For the areas around BD2, BD10, Wrose, Eccleshill, Undercliff, Idle. It's a club that is actually it's in a pretty big catchment area. And it's one that I've said to you when we've been there on midweek games in the past, that if they could just promote themselves a bit more and find a way to become, the city fans' second club almost, then there's a real potential because it's a huge, residential area that Kingsway is in. Obviously, they've struggled, but maybe for promotion, I guess, in terms of publicising themselves and getting themselves out there, it's not something you see a great deal from Eccleshill United. They're a little bit sporadic, although, to be fair, they are improving without a doubt on social media. But it just seems a drastic step. Now, the other thing, of course, that's brought up, and I'll bring up the statement now. So this was what was put out across the Eccleshill United social media. They say that they are pleased to announce that from the start of the 25-26 season, the first team are playing its home games at Cougar Park, the home of Keighley Cougars. The move forms part of a long-term strategy for the club to ensure not only its survival, but that it also achieves the objective of being a sustainable football club while continuing to be competitive on the field and expanding its community engagement. definitely want to come back to the words community engagement. The chairman of the club, as commented, we have pursued every possible avenue to try and make the club self-sustainable. And unfortunately, despite hard work, efforts, and money, none of these avenues have come to fruition. For many years, we have struggled to generate sufficient income via gate receipts, etc., to cover the running costs of the club. The fact that we have never had a bar has also had a significant effect on the potential income generation for the club. The bar at Kingsway is owned by a separate organisation, which has nothing to do with the football club. Therefore, as you can imagine, the running costs have been significantly more than the income generated, so we have found ourselves in a position where we've had to take some serious action to ensure the survival of the club. It is important for the club's sustainability that we have a long-term vision that would allow the club to not only survive, but to progress on the field and become self-sustainable. This exciting opportunity to move to Cougar Park will help us achieve that. The facilities on offer at Cougar Park are significantly better than those at Kingsway, so this will enable all visitors to enjoy a better experience. At Cougar Park, the club will benefit from a very nice modern pitchside bar, food and drink sales, corporate hospitality, and a club shop. The stadium itself has a capacity of 7,800, so we are hoping to fill that one day. We are pleased to confirm that manager Lee Elam and his backroom staff remain committed to the club, and we continue to support Lee in the club's progression. Now, that's from the club side. We'll come to the Cougars side in a minute, but I mean, two words, chappers, that we know are extremely limited, and we all know, for that matter, in football: self-sustainable. Find me a club at step 9 and 10 of the non-league pyramid that's self-sustainable. It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't. And I find it very bizarre that they've touched upon, we don't own the bar at Kingsway, so we get no income. So they're not going to get any income from the bar at Cougar Park either. That's owned and operated by Cougar Mania Limited, who own the rugby club. This
is a bane of contention that goes back to Steeton's time there, and again, I believe from Silson's period there. There was, again, as you say, like the club that was ground sharing wasn't necessarily getting. So unless there's something you would think an agreement, but these things are so shaky a lot of the time.
They are, and Steeton, there was an opt-out clause in that the rugby club operated. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, mate. I think you might be my end. Go on.
No, right. Yeah, no. Then that was the contention at Steeton. We only got the gate receipts, the program sales, and the food receipts. Everything else went to Keighley Cougars. With the rent agreement in place, it cost us money. And in the end, the rugby club who opted out of it at their side, and we had to obviously go find pastures new at Marley. Obviously, we felt lucky with the council. There's no guarantee if what was happening to Eccleshill, they would also get as lucky as we did. I just think it's a move that unless Eccleshill are going to become incorporated by the Cougars, rebrand themselves, Keighley FC, Ecky Cougars, playing rainbow kits with the rugby team. I'm not sure if there's a long-term sustainable future there for Eccleshill. I do feel that unless Keighley Cougars as an entity are going to buy Eccleshill, merge them in and make them their football club, that they're just going to hide into nothing, and they've just been better off staying at Kingsway in the first place.
Well, this is the worry, surely, because as I say, Eccleshill is, 8.5, 9, 10 miles down the road from Cougar Park. It's a non-league club that's been there for a long, long time and is there for its community. And whilst the attendances weren't, great, you were talking, probably 50 to 100 in most cases. Obviously, there'll be the odd game when, for example, Hallam, where there's a much better travelling support. But if you've got, 50 to 100 local residents of that area, are they really going to follow or want to make that half-an-hour journey to Keighley? Let's be honest, Cougar Park isn't the easiest ground to park at either on a match day. It just, I don't know. I'm a little bit. Look, I wish them all the best, but I'm a little bit skeptical and very worried. And that's like, from a personal point of view, I'm gutted because they were my 5-minute car journey. I can leave the house at 7, get there in plenty of time still, not have to worry. It's not
about you, Chris.
Now. Well, no, but I'm part of that community that the rest of the Eccleshill support is in.
I know.
And this is the thing. It's going from a 5-minute walk for some people or a 5-minute car drive to half an hour into Keighley, which, as I say, it's got limited parking facilities. And yes, it's a nice ground, but there's something that also feels odd about small numbers in big stadiums. You see that across the EFL and the higher echelons of non-league when you've got clubs that are in stadiums too big for them. It's just a weird feeling.
Can I ask a
It is
technical
what we
question?
feel.
Go on, Dante.
Surely there was an opportunity to go and play a ground that already has football playing at it. There's lots of clubs in Bradford. We know that, Bradford Park Avenue, Campion, Albion
Thackley
Sports,
just down the road.
Thackley. So there's lots of clubs, isn't there? Even playing at slightly higher levels that already have football style facilities. So I just wondered why the club haven't maybe looked into that, before taking this option. Because I mean, I worked, as Josh knows, at a rugby league club for many years, and there was always trying to get football there, and also other rugby clubs came and played at the rugby club that I worked for at Dewsbury. And what tended to happen there was rent would be paid, but as Josh says at Keighley, the same happened at the Rams. The bar revenue would go back to the Rams, and basically the only clubs that would sort of make any money would be if they did raffles on the day, halftime raffles and ticket sales, and then merchandise. So I just wondered, surely it would make more sense for Eccleshill to try and partner up with another football team, really.
Chappers, your take?
I'd agree with Steve. There are new facilities popping up all over Bradford thanks to City of Culture. The Myra Shea redevelopment. It's an absolutely stunning, beautiful, brand new built facility. Albion Sports and Route 1 have moved in there.
I was about to say, and actually on that, I mean, I appreciate Avenue is the opposite side of the city to Eccleshill, but because Albion Sports are moving obviously out of the Horsefall and into Myra Shea along with Route 1 Rovers, the potentially could have been some of that. Obviously, Farsley Celtic, they haven't yet confirmed, have they, exactly where they'll be playing in the NCL next season, have they?
The rumours doing the round in the local non-league scene around Keighley and Bradford, where I am especially, is Farsley are moving into the Horsefall for this season while the Citadel gets sorted out.
Fair enough. So maybe there isn't the opportunity for Eccleshill. It's just, I mean, as regards to the bar, I'll be honest, I wasn't aware, and I think I said this to you last night, Chappers, I wasn't aware that the social club and the bar, and actually including the toilet facilities for the public at Kingsway, wasn't part of the football club. But as I said to you, Guiseley, for example, are a club that had the license on the clubhouse, which is jointly run between the cricket club and the football club, and they were able to get a license to sell alcohol on their kiosk. Excuse me. And the kiosk at Eccleshill, for me, is one of the best around in terms of value for money, service, and kind of price-wise as well. Surely an option could have been, in terms of being able to make that money from alcohol sales in particular, of just trying to get hold of a license on the kiosk at Kingsway.
I'd agree with that. Licenses are cheaper than people think they are. We pay the council, obviously, to have a license on their own facility at Marley's. That's a council facility. It's and to be honest with you, knowing how much a bar license costs just to be able to sell bottles and cans out of a container like we do at Marley, you're gonna make you get one half decent crowding like we do at Steeton, Nelson, Baker, Darwin, Droylsden. One decent home crowd where they're going to be a deep few fans over with the away team. They're going to drink a bit. One home game, boom, your license is paid for, and everything else. So that's profit. So I'm not sure why, unless because the clubhouse is on the same grounds, perhaps. I don't know. I don't work for Bradford Council, so I won't be able to go into the deep bits in the paperwork, the bits you don't see. But yeah, I'm sure there'd have been an opportunity there for Eccleshill if they'd have wanted to take that.
I mean, how do you kind of see it going forward? Because in particular, of course, the pitch is a bane of contention at Cougar Park. And look, I know we're talking, 6-7 seasons ago now since Steeton were there, but how was it, for Steeton and being there in that ground share season?
Well, the start and end of the season, when the weather's dry and the rugby team are playing, it's quite good. The problem is, once you get into those winter months, October, November, December, January, not only do we have that very heavy weather, obviously the pitch at Cougar Park slopes, so it all runs to one end of the ground, but also the rugby team are back in for pre-season. And as Steve will tell you, rugby league pre-seasons isn't a case of staying off the grass to protect the pitch. They get on that pitch and they turn it into mud baths. Yeah, they turn it into mud baths. They need to get ready for their season. And they're not. I remember our last season at Steeton, we went, I think it was from late October 2019 to we played Shelley the week before lockdown. We went 4 months without a home game because of the pitch at Cougar Park, so the weather and the rugby just became a mud bath that, while it's suitable for the rugby, unplayable for football.
Well, I remember the Junior Rams played Keighley in a cup game, and I was quite excited because it means that I could sit in the box with Josh. To be honest, we could have a bit of a laugh. But that was very early on in the season. It was in a cup competition, and basically the lads came off at the end, and I was asking Josh which were our lads, and he was asking me which were the Keighley players. So it tells you everything that you need to know about how that pitch
and Steeton had a home game. That was on the Sunday, and Steeton had the home game on the Tuesday. And I remember walking down the stand, texting Roy saying, "Mate, I just told the referee to call your game Tuesday now."
Yeah. And very much the state of play at Keighley is very much the state of play at Halifax, because as soon as you get on the share pitch, that's exactly the same at come February, March time.
Yeah, I thought it best than to get our Halifax man Dave Foy on the show tonight, because we know his opinions of ground sharing with rugby league sides are the best.
Oh, he'd love this rugby league chat. He'd love it. He don't care. Guys, he don't care anything about anything except unless it's Halifax.
Doesn't want to know. Yeah. I'm just going to go on to the final part of the statement that was put out, because this is, it says also the women's and the junior section of the club will carry on running as normal, and this move will not affect them. I'll be honest, I've seen some contradicting comments on social media in the last 24 hours as to whether the junior and the women's team will continue at Kingsway or not. Meanwhile, Cowie Garcia, who's the managing director of the Keighley Cougars, commented to say that we are pleased to welcome Eccleshill to Cougar Park and look forward to working closely with Sally Lee and all of the team off and on the pitch in delivering a strategically aligned plan for the benefit of the whole of Keighley. Keighley, not Eccleshill's benefit. This is just the beginning of a long-term relationship that will continue to develop and deepen over time. We look forward to seeing what the future holds for the sport in Keighley. It sounds to me, and look, I put a comment on the Eccleshill social media post to welcome anyone from Eccleshill United to come onto the show and discuss this with us, as we often did with Farsi and the debacle over there over the last period of time. But, I mean, look, Josh, am I being insane if I said that this has potentially got rebrand in the long term written all over it, given the statements in particular from the Cougars side of things?
When I was at the Keighley Cup final 3 weeks ago at Silsden, and all the Silsden Steeton, and even your amateurs, your Oxen Oaks, your Silsden White Stars playing in the final, all the different committee members and players and fans of all these clubs were all together and it was literally the day after the rumours had just started about this. And we all said the same thing. Keighley Cougars are going to, and I've already touched upon it as well speaking with you tonight, I think the Cougars are going to incorporate Eccleshill. I think there will be a takeover. I think there will be a rebrand. I think the football club will become a part of the rugby club as like a different branch. You know, Cowie's Brazilian. There's a lot of that in Brazil. Football, rugby, netball, basketball becoming the same brands. And also as well, it's something else I've touched upon while speaking to you before already tonight. The Cougars have been struggling with all their grants. You know, they've wanted that new stand for 5 years. They've wanted a new pitch. They've wanted a new floodlights. The RFL don't have access to that sort of money. The FA are currently offering out £100,000 grants to teams at this level of non-league for ground development, and they have an applicant. I know they have been going on. Is this potentially a way of the Cougars while incorporating Eccleshill? Using it for their own personal gain? Who knows?
I was going to ask, where do the how do the Cougars benefit from this? And I think, to be honest, it sounds like you may well be answering it.
I think there is a.
Sorry,
go on, Chappers. I will bring down to you.
I think it's a case of Eccleshill, because obviously word's doing the rounds on social media, seeing Chris, they've sold the ground for housing, so they've cashed in that way to keep the club afloat for now. And I think the long-term aim of this and the end goal will be they become Keighley Cougars FC, playing out at Cougar Park with a shiny new stand, a nice pitch and floodlights. The Cougars get what they want. It allows the rugby team to flourish, and where the football team flourishes or not to be seen.
It's gutting. It is pretty gutting as somebody that has to say that lives in this area, 5 minutes away from Eccleshill, that the local non-league club is being taken out of its community. Downs, you were going to say something? Sorry, mate.
Yeah, just 2 points. One was I wasn't laughing at Josh when he mentioned the RFL, but we've both sat in meetings for many years, and I can say we've probably a sheer fact that us four on this podcast have more money than the entire RFL put together. So it's just a sheer fact. The second thing is, and that's not a slant against the RFL. The poor sods don't get any help from anybody else either, but. The other fact is that when I worked at the Rams, there was they created a 3G, 4G pictures, and they were looking for to make inroads with grants that way and that sort of thing. It's the way rugby league clubs have to survive. So you can't really put any blame on Keighley here. I personally, they've got to do what they've got to do to try and survive in the sport that genuinely has more money than a packet of Watsips, on the streets of Keighley blowing about. So I don't blame Keighley here. It's probably not the most subtle way that they've gone about doing it, but at the end of the day, they're looking after their own sport and their own team. And the Cougars, I know that they've been through a few rebrands and whatever, but they are a famous historic team in that sport. So yeah. That's what I would say. I've seen it's not just at Keighley that it's going on. It's going on at various rugby league clubs, in the north.
Gaz?
I don't follow rugby league very much at all, but I do know that Keighley is struggling this season. Obviously, down at the bottom, they get the first win or something at the weekend.
First win of the season.
So is this something to do? Has this come from their side? Do they need money? Is this where it's just come from?
They always need money, Gaz.
Believe me, Ryan and Cowie have gotten more than enough money in their pockets to take the hit on the losses and keep Cougars afloat. My take on it as someone who has worked for the Keighley Cougars, seen all the efforts going to try improving the ground under the new ownership since 2018, and someone who's obviously been on this side of it as well with Steeton, it does feel very much to me like the Cougars are at a point now where they need to get some money from somewhere to get this stand and pitch sorted to meet the IMG regulations in rugby league. Yeah. And they've gone through the back door basically by taking Eccleshill and going through the FA. That's how I see it. I might be wrong, but that's how I see it.
Yeah.
That's how I see it as well, Josh. I don't think they've not had a choice, have they, mate? We've both worked in rugby league long enough to know how the new scoring system works and all that. And it's all a load of bollocks, I have to say. But unfortunately, unlike football, where the money is decided by placings, that doesn't work in rugby league, and so the clubs genuinely have to find weird and wonderful ways of improving their own situations.
And the Cougars I think they're taking a leaf out of Hunslet's book, because obviously I know Hunslet keep the bar takings from South Leeds home games, don't they, in the NCL? So I think Cougars may have taken a lesson from there.
Yeah, well, they all talk to each other. We know that as well, Josh, don't we, in rugby league? All the chairmen love having a little meeting over mucky spread sandwiches.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we'll kind of finish on this topic, but for me, it's just sad for a community to be losing its team that is very much in the centre of, it's that residential area, the fact that, whilst the numbers may not be big, there's things that perhaps could have been done to avoid having to make this 10-mile move to Keighley almost. And yeah, as I say, for me, I'm just absolutely gutted about it happening. It will be interesting to see. The pre-season games for Eccleshill United are being played at Kingsway. So if you do want one last chance to get down to Kingsley before it possibly disappears in a couple of years' time, if it's sold off for housing or whatever, that is just rumours. There is nothing confirmed on that, I will admit. Then you've got the chance in pre-season. I'll be sure to be getting down there myself. Let's just touch on Steeton whilst we've got you on, mate. Obviously, last season, I mean, it was a little bit skin of your teeth, I think, towards the end of the season, but you managed to stay up, keep your place with North West Counties. The pesky Chevys were going nowhere. And look, how do you see kind of this coming season? Because obviously the year before last, there was sniffings of a playoff push that didn't quite happen. Last season was a disappointment. I'm sure Roy in particular will be desperate, Roy Mason, to be getting back up to the better end of the table.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, really. And maybe not even challenging for playoffs, just improve on last season. We're in a position at Steeton where we're not blessed with nice big backers like some of our local neighbours are. And this off season already, I know full well there's been some silly money being thrown around. I know one of the lads who have left, one of the many lads who have left Thackley for Campion, and he's getting paid 4 times what he's next season, 4 times at Campion what he won at Thackley last season. We can't compete with that. So our game is keep the core of the squad together, which from what it sounds like we are doing. Improving the areas we know we need to improve on with good quality, but not overpriced players. I think Roy's looking for character over quality in terms of what we're getting for our money, rather than splashing a load of money on one player, as some clubs do at this level. Just about keeping the core group together. So there's a good spirit in the team and building from the foundations we've now laid. It was a tough season, but we're in a league where Nelson was spending probably triple what everyone else spent last season and didn't even get promoted. So that tells you how tough the North West Counties First Division is. Nelson and Droylsden outspend everyone by a mile, and neither of them got promoted in the end. Exton Villa got promoted, and Exton Villa, I know full well there's lads there who still pay subs to play, and they got Holker's the same. Holker and Exton both made the playoffs last season. The entire Holker team still pay subs to play. Exton, some players get paid, some players pay to play. And Exton ended up being the team that got out of there. So we're looking at the league levels. There has been a change to that this morning.
Yes, there has. I did see that actually. Is it Cheadle Heath Nomads?
Yeah. So
Cheadle
Heath Nomads. Yes, Cheadle Heath Nomads asked to be kept in the First Division South, and Woolton, who've just been promoted out of the Liverpool League, who were put in the First Division South, asked to be put in the First Division North. So the league and FA
I did look at this geographically. Cheadle Heath Nomads more northern than Woolton, but when has that ever counted for anything in league allocations?
Exactly. So because they basically asked to swap leagues, it was just a nice, easy one for the FA and North West Counties to go, we'll just swap them round. Cheadle Heath can stay south, Woolton can go play north. So, looking at that league
allocation, it's going to be an interesting one because obviously Colne have had some decent seasons in the last few years, but last year was a complete, car crash.
And there's some serious money in that league, by the way. Ashton Town, Daisy Hill, Darwin, Droylsden, Nelson. There's probably teams that step 4 them 5 could outspend.
I mean, from a Steeton perspective, obviously it would be good, I guess, to get Colne back because obviously it's just over the big hill in terms of a one for a crowd. Obviously the sole West Yorkshire side in that division. You go up a league, and technically, I know Barnoldswick's a contentious one as to whether it's Yorkshire or Lancashire, but we always cover Barlick on air because I quite like Barlick. It's a nice little setup down there. But again, you look at the league above that, North West Counties Prem, and there's some big hitters, despite the fact that obviously they lost the biggest of the lot in Bury with them going up.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking in terms of crowds, they're all gutted to lose Bury, but if anything, I actually think losing Bury will make that a more competitive. Oh, it is a competitive league. Got Ramsbottom there, 100 points last season and didn't get promoted because Lower Breck and Bury both somehow managed to get more than 100 points. But I think so. That's a very competitive league. Obviously, if we were to go up to step 5, we'd be put in the East. There's no mistakes about that. But I quite enjoy the North West Counties. You get to go places you wouldn't only get to go. You get to meet some interesting people. They all hate you because you're not from Lancashire. Ashton Athletics chairman. If I have £1 for every time I hear that bloke say only Manx, Scouse, and Cheshire team should be in the North West Counties, I'd be able to have enough money to buy one of these clubs and get it up. Honestly.
As I say, when you look at the North West Counties, you are the sole out-and-out West Yorkshire side in it. A quick glance at the Northern Counties East. Obviously, we know that Route 1 Rovers ended up with a reprieve and then a lateral move into the Northern Counties East. And obviously they're back at Myra Shane. We touched on it earlier, the fact that that development has had a hell of a lot of work done over the last, year or two. And it's now kind of fit for purpose. And obviously with Albion Sports moving in there as well, one side in the NCL Prem and Route 1 Rovers in the NCL Division 1.
Yeah, Myra Shea, I've seen the photos and the videos. It's a beautiful facility. I'll give the council to do. They've done a good job there. I'll be honest with you, I think Route 1 will be challenging for promotion in that league next season. Every single team who has been with us in the Northwest, who then got moved to the Northeast, has either got promoted or made the playoffs. I think the only exception being Shelley. I think the Northwest Division Step 6 is a better standard, but I think Route 1 being back close to their natural home, bigger crowds, bigger money, better players. I fancy them to do well next season in that league. I think Danny Forest and Liversidge will go straight back up in the Prem as well, looking at our local teams in there as well. I think Campion will be competitive. I do think Thackley and Eccleshill will both struggle. Albion, you never know what you're going to get. They're very capable of winning 5-0 and losing 5-0, but I think they'll be up there again as well. And Farnsley, it's going to be weird. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Until I see where they're playing and what the squad's like, I'm not really sure if I can give a comment on Farnsley.
Well, this is the thing. Farnsley in particular, as I say, we touched on it a lot last season. The fact that David Stockdale finished the season basically running the under-18s academy side in their games, obviously at Buxton. Obviously, when things are finalised on the ground, that will help them. And then it depends what there is to spend in terms of getting more experienced senior pros in, because they do seem to be trying in a position where, because of the situation they're in, they're a little bit behind everybody else. When you look at the fact that, Thackley have been picking up one or two players, obviously with Jamie Price coming in to take the helm there. Liversidge have been busy, obviously, under Danny Forrest. And the same goes for Echo. So, they've announced a few retentions and a couple of decent-looking new arrivals as well in the last few days at Eccleshill. So, Farsley do seem to have almost playing a little bit catch-up already, and we're only in, 2nd of June now?
Yeah, I think Farsley are playing catch-up a bit. I do feel for Farsley, it's not their fault, it's not the players' fault, it's not Dave's fault, it's not the fans' fault in the position they're in. But they are playing catch-up. I think for Farsley, ideally, probably a nice, comfortable mid-table season, allow them to consolidate and rebuild, then push their way back up the pyramid. Probably their best option. I'm not really sure if that's their thinking. If they want to go straight up, but it'll be interesting to see, especially with them obviously not having that license to go up, which is how they ended up at that level in the first place.
What will help, I guess, is the fact that they are back within a 10-mile radius of Crossall Nest, at least, because obviously they'll be able to get, potentially 200, 300, 400 crowds back, which obviously at NCL level would certainly put them as one of the highest in the league. And that in itself could really benefit the club trying to get themselves back on that even keel and looking to build again.
Yeah. I think if Farsley can get the crowds, and then on top of the crowds, get the finance on what those crowds bring in, even if they are not playing at the Citadel, I think it will help them.
To call it the Citadel, it's Crossall Nest, and it will always be Crossall Nest to me.
It'll be interesting to see. I'll say that also as well. I think Farsley could surprise us. As we've touched upon there, they're going to be the unknown quantity, aren't they? So they could be the team that comes in, surprise everyone, and flies up and goes straight back up.
And you never know as well with recruitment at this level and the fact that everything is, generally speaking, most players are on a 7-day notice, that things can change quite quickly with squads at this level of the game. Josh, we'll let you go before we get on to Bradford City, actually, because I appreciate that you stood in the centre of Keighley and we've had you on for half an hour or so almost, or just over. So we'll let you go so you can continue your journey to get yourself home. But thanks for coming on and talking through the non-league side of things with us, mate.
Oh, you're more than welcome, mate. But before I go, though, for Bradford City, we don't have SMALLWOOD in the middle anymore, so I'll leave Gaz to talk about that one.
Gaz, you've muted yourself, mate. He's that gutted.
We don't have Critchlow at the back either, and we don't have Cookie in attack at the moment either.
I know, so what exactly do we need?
Who knows what we need?
Who knows?
Excellent. Cheers, chappers. Thanks a lot, mate, for coming on and joining us.
Pleasure, guys, always. Thank you very much.
Yeah, mate.
Cheers, mate.
See you in a bit, lads. Bye.
That's Josh Chapman, the media man at Steeton, and as I say, kind of all-round non-league guru, and Downsy, as it proves, all-round RFL and rugby league guru as well around our region too.
Yeah. Me and Josh probably, go for the ones with the most rugby league knowledge round here. I know Dave Foy is probably the complete opposite. But thanks everybody for tuning in to the West Yorkshire Rugby League show for the last half an hour. And I'm sure Gaz is absolutely chomping at the bit to talk some actual football with Bradford City. So
it's been all about football. It's just very closely linked with the rugby league at the moment for Eccleshill. Let's turn then to Bradford City, and as Josh alluded to there, Gaz, we thought in the weeks gone by since promotion was confirmed that Richie Smallwood, we kind of thought he might get a year. He might get that 1 year extension. Obviously, he's 34-year-old now. Turns out that's not the case. It's been announced today that Richie Smallwood will be leaving at the end of his contract expiring.
It broke this morning, yeah. He announced it on his social media that he was going. His words are, and it's quite interesting to read what he's actually said, because the way he's worded it is the club have decided not to offer a renewal. Now, that could mean a few different things. It's as though he's chosen his words quite carefully, because when the return list was done 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was listed as a player that we were in negotiations with.
Yeah.
So the club have said we're in negotiations, and he's now saying 2 or 3 weeks later that we haven't offered a renewal. So read into that what you will.
There was an article as well in the TNA fortnight 3 weeks ago. Smallwood I've loved my time here, and basically saying how much he wants to stay at Bradford City. Around the time that retaining list was announced, when, as you say, he was listed as being in negotiations. Something certainly changed, it seems, from the coaching staff's point of view.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I'm only guessing, and City fans are obviously guessing as throughout the day because the news broke this morning. My guess, and it's not an informed guess, my guess would be that they've had initial discussions and they were far enough apart in what they wanted, what each side was willing to do, that it was pointless making an offer. That is obviously I'm jumping to conclusions there, but that is what I'm guessing's happened, which would fall in with the rumours that were going round a few weeks ago that perhaps City might only be willing to offer something that Smallwood wasn't willing to accept, i.e. he might feel that whatever was going to be on the table from City, he would get a better offer, not necessarily in terms of wages or playing level, but perhaps in terms of length of deal, duration. He might. I'm only guessing, Chris, but I'm guessing that's perhaps what's happened here, that City have perhaps talked about, I don't know, a 1 year deal. And he's saying, I want a minimum of 2 because I can get 2 elsewhere. That's me guessing. I don't know. And because maybe that's how the initial discussions have gone, that's led to no official offer being made. I don't know.
I think that's a very fair assumption, because you always see, obviously, and you can't blame him as well, players at his stage of his career at 34 do kind of want that little bit of extra security. And obviously, if they can get a 2-year contract, it's far more beneficial for them, whether they kind of end up playing week in or week out or not, for them to have that extra year of security, knowing that a wage is coming in, rather than obviously a 1 year deal. I mean, I wouldn't expecting, I suspect you'll agree with me on this one. I don't suppose he'll be short of offers, certainly from League Two sides, or the wealthier sides, even maybe of the National League, that would be prepared to give him that extra year and that 2-year contract and a decent wage, perhaps.
Yeah, he'll definitely get offers in League Two, longer offers than I would imagine David Sharp would have been prepared to offer him in League One. And like you say, those big spenders in the conference, York Cities perhaps, might be looking at someone like Richie Smallwood. Honestly, he'd probably do a job for certain teams in League One. I think he'd have done a job for us in League One, particularly over the next year, especially over the next year. It depends how quickly we're aiming to kick on. David Sharp has obviously looked at it and thought that he can get better value for money over the course of a contract elsewhere. But I think over the next 12 months, he would have been very integral to whatever we would have wanted, whatever we would have done in League One. I mean, I've worded it. I did a little video earlier on just for YouTube and socials, and my personal opinion of it is very risky. It is a risk from the club. They've gambled to a certain extent, and I can go into that if you want me to, Chris, or why I feel that way. Well, I think it's a risk from the club. They've gambled to a certain extent, and I can go into that if you want me to, Chris, or why I feel that way. Well, There's a few reasons that I think that way. Let me start by saying Richie Smallwood's been here for 3 years now. The first 2 years that he was here, particularly under Mark Hughes, he wasn't a fan's favourite. He wasn't someone that the fans particularly thought was playing to the ability that he had, or he wasn't giving what the fans expected when he signed. People were excited when he signed because he was Hull City's captain in the Championship and he dropped down, and people were saying he don't look like a Championship player. But I think a large part of that was the fact that he was being asked to do a job by Hughes that he wasn't particularly capable of doing. He was asked to be a playmaker. He was taking all the set pieces, and that's never been Richie Smallwood's game. You speak to anyone that's watched Richie Smallwood, he's a battler, he's a destroyer, he's a breaker up of play. This last 12 months under Alexander, he's been allowed to do that. He's been a revelation. He's been absolutely the player that we thought we were getting 2 or 3 years ago. He's won Player of the Year. He's totally turned fans' opinions around of him because he's been allowed to focus on what he's good at under Graham Alexander, he's been Player of the Year. He's also been captain for all 3 years that he's been here. Graham Alexander speaks extremely highly of him. I would guess, I'm only guessing here, but if the decision has been made to let him go, I'm guessing Alexander will have fought the corner to keep him because he was very much a Graham Alexander man, and Alexander trusted him on the pitch. Then you've got the scenario that not many players. I know you might look at it and think we can get somebody who's younger, who's arguably as good as or can be better than Smallwood over the next 2 years. Maybe you can, but not, as we know at Bradford City, not many players can handle playing at Valley Parade. That is a very, very big thing. And Smallwood is somebody that didn't faze at all because he'd come out of the Championship and he'd played in front of crowds like that throughout his career. So whoever comes in might have more footballing ability or potentially could be a better player over 2-3 years that we want to sign them for. But whoever comes in has got to be able to handle that pressure of playing at Valley Parade like Smallwood could. Also, like I say, he was captain. He was Player of the Year. That leaves a huge hole in itself in any team if you're losing your captain and your Player of the Year. Look at what happened when he got sent off at Swindon towards the end of last season. We lost him for 3 games and we fell apart in that running. You guys know how bad we were in that running. He was back for the Fleetwood game, for the last game of the season, but he missed Chesterfield, Notts County and Donny. And we took 1 point from 3 games. That shows how integral he was to that team. And then you've also got the scenario. So you've got the scenario of whoever comes in has got to be able to handle playing at Valley Parade. Whoever comes in has got to be able to fill the hole of a captain and the Player of the Year. And then you've got the scenario that, as with any promoted team, that group this year was extremely close-knit. It was a very close-knit unit in that dressing room. And as captain, he will have been a very, very big part of that. I think he was, although, like I say, he wasn't necessarily a fan's favourite in his first 2 years. He was a fan's favourite in his last year. Fans liked him this year. He's been a really big fan's favourite. He's won Player of the Year. But he's been a player's favourite. He's been popular in the dressing room for all 3 years that he's been there. And as captain, he will have been a huge part of that close-knit group and the tightness that's helped us get over the line towards the end of the season. You've got the Northeast contingent that travelled down every day from the Northeast in a carpool. He's part of that. So it leaves a huge hole on the pitch as captain and Player of the Year. It leaves a huge hole in the dressing room. I would be interested to know what Alexander's thoughts of it are and what the other players' thoughts of it are, because obviously he's such an integral part of the team in the dressing room. And then you've got the scenario of can whoever comes in handle playing at Valley Parade, like so many. You go for a younger player, perhaps someone on the up who's coming in to play over 2 or 3 years. There's no guarantee that they're going to handle the crowd and everything that comes with playing at Valley Parade. So it is a huge, huge risk. But you've got to hope that it's a calculated risk, and you've got to trust that David Sharp and Graham Alexander have got this one right, and whoever comes in to replace him can kick us on in League One.
Damsey?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as... I get why you're saying it's a big risk, Gaz, because obviously you've watched them all season. You know how important he is to the side. I think he let you down, I'll be honest, at the back end of last season when he got sent off. I think as an experienced player, you know, with what he knew, what was on the line, with being at the club for 3 years, knowing how much it meant to City to go up, I thought he let you down, and it could have cost you. Luckily, it didn't. At 34, yeah, he's experienced, but I don't see why you can't go get a 30-year-old, to fill that gap, or a 29-year-old, somebody who's, got the legs. Something that you're going to need in League One is legs. Listen, I don't think there's a lot between the bottom of League One and the top of League Two. I really don't. What I do think, though, is it might be a little bit more competitive at the sort of bottom end of League Two next year. Donny coming up. You haven't got absolute waste baskets like Crawley and blooming Cambridge. You've got teams that are going to be half decentish. Northampton, they beat Town last year. Exeter, that they did well. You got Nigel Clough at Mansfield, so it's not going to be easy to stay up in League One. And I just feel that this could be the moment where, yes, I get how important Smallwood is, but with how City fans felt about him for the 2 year previous, and all right, he's done what he's done in the last year. I just think you can replace him with better legs. You might not be able to replace him with experience, but you'll be able to replace him with legs that will last longer in games. And that's kind of what I don't think it's as disastrous. It's like at Town we've let a load of experienced players go. Tom Lees, Matty Pearson, Johnny Ogg. I'm not as fussed about them going personally.
Apart from Hogg, you've only just finished crying over Hoggy.
No, Hoggy's different though, and Hoggy's different. But Matty Pearson's been with us. I know, but Matty Pearson's been with us for like 5 years. Tom Lee's the same. I'm not devastated that they've gone, because I think that the club can replace them with better players, and I think that is the same for Richie Smallwood. But I'm not a City fan, so I don't have the same attachment to him and watched him for 42 games last season in what was a great season for him.
I don't think you're wrong. I think there probably are players that's what the point I suppose I was trying to make before. In that I don't think you're wrong. I think there'll be players that can come in who have equal ability of Richie Smallwood and can probably take us on over a longer term than Richie Smallwood could, because Richie Smallwood's going to be 35 during the next season, turn 35. His birthday's around December. So he's going to turn 35 in the next season. So a longer term, yeah, there's probably a player out there that can be better than him. I think it's just the hole that he's going to leave in the dressing room. And, that as captain and like I said, the leader in Graham Alexander's man and obviously popular with the rest of the team and the players. And then you've got obviously the fact that he's just won player of the year, and we saw how integral he was when he was suspended for those 3 games. You're right, he did let us down at the end of the season. He openly admitted in his interview when he came back for Fleetwood that he said himself that he thought if he hadn't have got sent off against Swindon that we would have already been promoted by the time that Fleetwood game came around. And it's hard to disagree with him. He was probably right. So he's admitting there that he let us down. But yeah, it's just the hole that he leaves on the pitch and in the dressing room, given how well he played last season and how popular he is with the players. Now, you're right, we will need legs in League One. That is something he did lack. I think it helped him this year having Patterson alongside him. Patterson's your box-to-box man, and that helped him that he didn't have to do as much running. But fitness-wise, he played every minute of every game, Downsy. He as a 34-year-old, he never missed a game. He never missed a game. He's fit as a butcher's dog. Do you know what I mean? And the only games, I think there was a stat that came out. I think the first league game he'd missed in 3 years, in his 3 years at City, the first league game he'd missed was that Notts County one, the first one of his suspension. So,
yeah, and I get that. And Huggy was very much the same for us. He was the fittest player, always won the bleep test. Was even at 35, what he was this year, was winning bleep tests in pre-season. Looks after his body, the model professional. But you can tell when in games, you can tell that he couldn't keep up with the faster midfielders, particularly at the top of the league. So it's just an observation, Gaz. I just think I wouldn't be as worried as what maybe some City fans are, but that's just me.
I mean, I'm a pessimist, and a lot of City fans are looking at it and saying that obviously we can, over the course of maybe a 2 or a 3 year contract or whatever's on offer to his replacement, we probably can do better. But me being a pessimist is looking at what the hole it's going to leave and the type of player that, as we all know, needs to come in to be able to handle playing at Valley Parade. If you're going for a younger, up-and-coming player, can they hack that coming to Valley Parade? Let's see. If David Sharp, it's a gamble. It's a calculated gamble. It's a risk. You've got to trust David Sharp and Graham Alexander that they've got this one right. Like I said, Graham Alexander was a big fan of his. I would imagine it's come from Sharp thinking that he can get better, or he can get someone that can come in and do what we hope they do, and what you say, Downs, they'll need to do in League One. I think that David Sharp is obviously confident he can do that, and fingers crossed that he can.
Is there anything else, guys, coming out of Bradford City kind of in recent days? Anything on the rumour mill that you think is worth bringing up at the moment in terms of new arrivals, maybe?
The only other thing that happened a couple of weeks ago was George Goodman got his first pro deal. Northern Ireland under-19 centre-back, came through the youth team, was on the bench a couple of times last season when we were short. He's got his first pro contract, 12 months, so it's good to be able to keep hold of him. He's obviously fairly highly rated if he's getting called up for Northern Ireland for his age group. That's the only other definite news. There are rumours doing the rounds about signings, as you would expect at this time of year. There was an article in the Telegraph and Argus towards the end of last week saying that we've agreed terms with a player who is currently on holiday. It's all agreed, but we're waiting for him to come back before he can actually sign. So that was expected to be announced at the beginning of this week. It's not been announced today, so maybe we're looking at tomorrow or Wednesday. If that deal doesn't fall through, that it will be announced. No mention reliably of who it is. There are 3 rumours that I've seen online that have gathered pace over the last sort of week or two. One is obviously Matty Pearson, that's been released by Town. He's rumoured that he's been in talks with us. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I do believe that there's interest from Blackpool there as well, and possibly other clubs in League One. Whether we are interested, I don't know. That's one of the rumours. It's come from the fan base more than anything else. Another rumour that came up today that City fans weren't enamoured with at all was one that came from a rumour page on Twitter, but a rumour page that has supposedly got things right recently, and has more than a few hundred followers. It has 8,000 or 9,000 followers, and that is Curtis Tilt from Salford. He's not somebody I think that the fans would be impressed with, in the respect that he's coming out of League Two, and having watched him 2 or 3 times recently, he's got the turning circle of an oil tanker. He ain't the quickest. But apparently...
So is Matty Pearson.
Well, but Matty Pearson's played in League One, hasn't he? And Curtis Tilt's been playing in League Two for the last 3 years. But apparently he's been in the team of the week quite a few times in League Two over the last year. That's the second rumour. The third rumour is a lad from Kilmarnock who was actually in Town's youth system as a kid. I don't think he ever played for Town, but he went on loan to Aki Stanley. Then he had 4 or 5 years at Doncaster Rovers and has spent the last 3 years at Kilmarnock in Scotland. Centre half called Joe Wright. That is another rumour that he's doing the rounds at the moment. So those are the 3 rumours. Whether they are the player that is rumoured to be signing beginning of this week, I don't know. Whether they're true at all, I don't know. But they are the 3 rumours. The only thing I'd have against Joe Wright is the last centre half that we signed from Kilmarnock was Ash Taylor, and he were bloody awful. So if he does come, surely he's got to be better than him.
Sorry, Downsy.
I have no information on Joe Wright. I'll be honest. He never made a Town team, so if he was in the academy, I presumably got released and, like I said, went on loan to Aki and then got released. But on Pearson, I can only imagine that he would. I can only think he would choose Bradford over Blackpool because of the play. The only reason he would choose Blackpool, honestly, is because of wages. Because he lived about 10 minutes from Valley Parade in Keighley.
From Keighley into...
But I don't understand why he wouldn't choose Bradford.
The money thing is the thing, because there was also an article in the TNA last week about how we're having to wait. It was a bit ambiguous as to whether he was talking about last season or whether he was the last couple of windows or whether he was talking about this transfer window. But Graham Alexander used the phrase, "We are having to say no" quite a lot when it comes to wages. So maybe
the other thing I will
be an
say at
issue.
Blackpool as well is that I suspect that they'll certainly have aspirations of being top 6, certainly top 10 next season. I think
Oh,
under Steve
Blackpool
Bruce,
will,
it's fair
yeah.
to say, without a doubt. So there is certainly
I mean-
a promotion aspect as well. The one thing that those 3 players, though, in the rumour mill all have in common, as well as being obviously centre halves, is they're all of a certain age. They're all give or take around that 30 mark in Pearson, in Wright, and in Curtis Tilt as well. So you know, if there's a grain of truth in at least what it seems that Graham Alexander is looking for, it's an experienced centre half.
Doesn't surprise me, Chris. We've
No.
lost. You look at the defenders that are under contract at the moment. We've only got Aidan Baldwin and Neil Byrne as centre halves under contract at the moment, and they both played right side or central last year. We obviously played 3. Graham Alexander's played 3 centre halves, so you need 5 or 6, don't you, in a squad when you're playing 3 centre halves? We've only got 2 at the moment. We have. We were in negotiation. The return list again said that we were in negotiations with Kieran Kelly to extend his stay. So whether that'll come through and he'll sign, I don't know. Whether it'll be another Richie Smallwood scenario, I don't know. But centre half is something that we'll look at. Obviously, Jack Shepherd's went back to Barnsley. He's someone that City fans would dearly love to have back next season, but you can see Barnsley wanting to keep him given how well he played for City last year. So there is definitely recruitment needed at the centre half position. Obviously, there are recruitment needed elsewhere in the squad as well. Up front, we're short, but it doesn't surprise me we're looking at experienced centre halves at all.
Absolutely. That wrap up everything from Bradford then, Gareth, do you think? And, you know, hopefully there'll be more to come this time next week.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think that's about it for now. Like I said, just those 3 rumours and the Goodman thing and the Smallwood that broke this morning. So more than we had last week, but nothing concrete regarding signings unless this one comes off tomorrow, Wednesday time. Yeah,
time will tell. Let's turn our attention then to Huddersfield Town, and we'll see if we can get through all the town talking points in around 15 minutes or so. When Stephen Downs has unmuted himself, we'll start.
I'm looking forward to this because Downs is not.
Yeah, it sounds like Downsy has got an absolute library full of things to get through. Let's kind of start at the top, I guess, because of course this is the first Monday night show we've done since Lee Grant was appointed as Huddersfield Town manager. When I came into StreamYard earlier, I had to declutter it from all your Huddersfield Town stuff from your Town Talk show. But I have kept up the quotes and the like from Nagel, from Kevin Nagel, and from Lee Grant. I mean, obviously it's been a week or so, give or take, since Lee Grant was appointed.
Yeah.
How are you settling into the idea?
Yeah, I'm pretty all right with it. Now that I've heard him talk a couple of times, did his first press conference on last Thursday, was announced on Wednesday. So I'm feeling all right about it. There's a bit of unease. It's like when you go to Windsors World of Shoes and buy a new pair of trainers and they pinch a little bit when you first go on a run. I think I think that they're not quite sort of comfortable yet, but they could become comfortable. So Lee Grant is a very nice pair of trainers at this moment in time, but new ones. I think he's obviously very inexperienced, come from Ipswich. Never managed at first team level before, but has had a very, very good education under McKenna. Obviously, the Wrose from League One to the Premier League. He was previously at Manchester United in and around not just the academy, but first team, being sort of in a weird position.
The fourth official for a Man United game.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a weird when he were at Man U because he was a player, but he never really played. Well, I don't think he actually ever did play.
He did. I think he played a couple of certainly cup games at least.
Yeah, very rare though. But
yeah.
He learned under some of the greatest coaches. Well, I say greatest, but great coaches that we have had in the country, like Louis Van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, all the coaches that have been at Man U over the last couple of years. So he's got a good grounding. He's got a very, very high and good reputation within the FA. Sped through absolutely all the courses since he was 39 when he retired. So he said himself that he'd been looking to do this since the age of 29. So even before most players know, when they're going to retire. Listen, I'm kind of still getting used to it. I think he does need an experienced person maybe above him, if not a director of football, somebody of the ilk. There are names mentioned, Ross Wilson particularly, who worked at Town before, been at Rangers, and he's currently chief scout at Nottingham Forest. So I'd love it if it was a Wilson Grant duo, because I think you've got a really hungry head coach / he's actually named himself as manager, which is a bit different for Town at the moment, because for the last 10 years we've had head coaches. So I think, bar Warnock obviously, but so I think, a young hungry manager that wants to prove himself, that wants to kick on and really kickstart his career with a more experienced head above him like Ross Wilson, that can sort of guide him through particularly the transfer part of it.
I mean, I've got to be honest, mate. Sitting as a supporter of a different League One club, but I looked at it and thought, "Oh, that's a gamble. That's a gamble, League Grant." However, I'm slowly becoming a little bit more concerned / annoyed that this is actually going to all work out perfectly fine for you guys at Town, because on the recruitment side, it's 2 signings in and 2 very, very eye-catching signings in as well. Ryan Ledson, of course, who was at Preston North End, and then Marcus Harness, who was obviously an Ipswich player, but last season played 40-odd games on loan at Derby County of a Championship. And even though Marcus Harness is 29, in my opinion, he has absolutely no bloody right to be playing in League One and should still be in the Championship. So what you have there, my friend, is a hell of a signing. Now, if you can stop making these good signings, I'll be a bit happier.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do support a smaller League One club, but that's by the by. I think looking at the policy, I think what Grant wants to do is get players of the right character. That's something that's been a massive topic at Town over the last couple of years, particularly, obviously, we all know under Brian Reiter. Ryan Ledson's come in, absolute sort of perfect replacement for Hoggy. Just loves to tackle people around the neck by the looks of it. Can pass the ball a little bit better than Hoggy. I must give him that. And obviously he's younger at 26, I think. So he's sort of in his prime or coming to his prime. So that's a very good signing to get him away from Preston on a free. So we're not paid any money for him.
Before we move on from Ryan Ledson, Gaz, anything to add on Ryan Ledson or his soap star celebrity missus?
No.
All right, Gaz,
no.
Carry on.
And then obviously Harness, like you say, he's come in just today, literally before we come on air. Like I said, 29, scored 4 and assisted 4 last year for Derby. His numbers in terms of goals and assists haven't been amazing over his time at Portsmouth or at Ipswich or at Derby. However, he's the sort of player that can get fans off the seat. Reminds me a bit of Sean Scannell, a little bit of Rajiv Van La Parra, where, if you can get the best out of him, what I want to see him, crossing balls to Joe Taylor and Dion Charles in the box. That's what I want to see off Harness. And
completely, yeah.
I think shut up. And I think they are good signings. They are good signings, and they're a bit of they're showing the rest of the division a little bit of intent there and also getting them in early. I mean, literally the window hasn't officially opened for clubs at our level, so and they can't join these lads until the 1st of July. So it's getting them signed up early.
Yeah, it's certainly an early commitment. Gaz, go ahead, mate.
First one about Lee Grant, Downsy. I've not watched the interview, the press conference. Obviously, you will have done as a Town fan. There were lots of names linked with Town over this. You've had a long period where you've been looking for a manager and you've been linked with lots and lots of people. What was the thing that swung it, do you think, in Lee Grant's favour? What have Town seen in him? What have they said that made him stand out above everybody else when they made the decision to go with him?
The previous 10 candidates said no.
Well, I think I know Chris is joking there with a bit of a clown face on. However, I do.
Lee Grant was at no stage the first choice. Let's be honest.
I do think there is some truth in that. From what I understand and know, the job was offered to various people. Obviously, the club's never going to say that, but from what I understand, it was they, for whatever reason, the candidates didn't seem the right ones or didn't want to join the club at this level. And Lee Grant was obviously a name put forward. Now, whether that's come from Ross Wilson, whether that's come from somebody else in the recruitment world, I don't know. But Lee Grant, 77 days ago, when Michael Duff was sacked, was about as far away from a candidate of getting the Town job as what I was. In fact, I was probably higher on the list. So, what do I think his qualities are? Well, I say he's inexperienced, but sometimes inexperience means that he'll have a drive and determination to prove people wrong, that he can manage at first team level. That he has learned obviously a lot off McKenna. I think the way he speaks, by the way, isn't like a coach that's managing somewhere for the first time. He's got a very, very clear mind of what he wants to do. And that's something I can get on board with straight away, because Town have been a rudderless ship over the last 2-3 years. And if that means that the manager knows exactly what he wants from day one, how he wants to operate, what his backroom staff are going to do, to me, that speaks volumes about him as a young coach, but also excites me a little bit, because we can do stuff. The other thing about this appointment that's quite nice is Town seemingly grab these opportunities with people out of absolutely nowhere and seemingly create bits of success from them. Going even way back to the Buxton days in like the 1970s and 80s, he was very much of a Bob Paisley-esque, where physio and obviously coach and all that, and being ex-player, and he's one of Town's most famous managers. Came in the dressing room, and his first thing he said was, we treat the club with a bit of respect. We side the cones away. We wash the kit properly and all that, and give the club a bit of respect. And I can see Lee Grant doing the same thing. The one thing that he said at Ipswich was that the coaching staff were all in at 6:30 every morning, and if they came in late, they got fined. And that's the coaching staff. Never mind the players. So,
What I will say, Downsy, is if you're going to go for that type of manager, that type of up-and-coming coach, it looks like the right one to go for. He's obviously got a good grounding at Ipswich. It looks like you picked the right sort of horse in that regard. Just two more quick ones. First one, what's the general Town fan reaction been? And second one, if Lee Grant wasn't involved, wasn't appointed, and you didn't have a director of football, who's behind the Ryan Ledson signing?
So the first one is, I think there's it is a gamble, like Chris said. So I think that the fan base is, I think, talking about percentage ways, we're probably talking about like 65% are sort of excited, and the other 35% are thinking, well, yeah, I'm not sure. They're not sure about it.
Could go either way.
Yeah. I think the other 65% are still a bit like, well, it could go either way, but they're trying to look at it as a half, glass full kind of scenario. So it's not been really negative, guys. I think what people are wanting though is, like I said, that Ross Wilson appointment above him to steer him in the right direction. Because the other thing that we always have to remember is, Kevin, as well as what he's done off the pitch with the football club, which I know I want to come on to, on the pitch, not a lot of things have gone right. So you need, for me, not just for Grant, but for Nagel, he needs an operator in there that of the highest order, someone like Ross Wilson that knows it. On your second point, who signed Ryan Ledson? Absolutely no idea, Gaz, to be absolutely honest, because he was mentioned even before Lee Grant was mentioned to be manager. So presumably we have got we have got a recruitment team that Lee Mabry, who is he's experienced at this level, and has been doing the job for a number of months now, years I think. So. As with all recruitment teams, they sort of plan 6 months ahead, don't they? So I'm pretty sure that this will have been a name that will have been mentioned at the back end of last season, and talks will have already sort of quickly been mentioned and happened. So it's not a Lee Grant signing. I think Harness is definitely with the Ipswich connection. 100%.
I've seen the quotes from Marcus Harness tonight in which he says, and I'll quickly read it, I got a call from Lee Grant after he got the manager's job at Huddersfield Town, told me about the club, the direction it's going and everything going on that I wasn't aware of. Know how he works. It was a no-brainer for me. I was sold early on. Sure, he's going to do a great job here. I'm going to try going to do my best to try and help that. So, look, the quotes from Marcus Harness are obviously encouraging. The fact that, within the last 5 days, Marcus Harness has gone from not really knowing where his future is to getting a call from Lee Grant, who's finalised the contract so quickly to get it over the line is superb. But it also shows that, and let's be honest, Lee Grant he's not an unknown. I think that's the big bonus as well in appointing, a manager that hasn't had first team manager experience before. Whilst he's got all this coaching backing, he's not a complete unknown. Any EFL fan from the last 25 years will know exactly who Lee Grant is. And therefore, so will players.
The other thing is he's got very good contacts within academies at Manchester City, Manchester United, down in London.
It's a matter of time, I'm convinced, before his son turns up on loan from Manchester City.
Probably.
It's a brilliant name. True.
Grant. Yeah. It's a bit weird that you've called your kid True, but it's up to
I'm sure that's a typo. I reckon he's just gone for his favourite actor and just got it all wrong at the crucial second.
Probably. So yeah, I think just going back to Ledson though, he's the type of side. Look, listen, he's a Hoggy, he's a Smallwood. He works in any team. You need a destroyer. You need a player that's going to tackle. So it don't matter what formation you play or what style of football you play. He's the sort of signing that fits in anywhere. So he's a good signing. Hines a good signing. It's positive on that front. We've had apparently contract talks with Fraser Horsfall. I'd still like to have maybe a look at O'Connor from Lincoln, your club, or Rufflin, I always say that wrong, or a Dauphin from Rotherham. I think he'd be a good player. So we still need to make a number of signings, but it's started well.
I would not be shocked to see Paddy O'Connor turn up at Huddersfield, I'll be honest. I mean, both him and Sean Rowan were players that Lincoln said were in negotiations to offer new contracts, new terms, and I would not be surprised if frankly neither of them ended up staying. I'd say for O'Connor, being a centre half, and obviously with the centre halves that have left town, he'd be an ideal replacement. In fairness, I mean, what's the next topic for town then? Because obviously there's quite a few little bits to get through. So I'll let you lead the way on what you want to talk about next.
Yeah, so there was obviously there's been a report in the website I used to own, Huddersfield Hub, that Ken Davey has come out, and obviously, so this relates to Dave as well, being a Halifax fan. Ken Davey's come out and said that he's still in discussions with the council to try and buy the gasworks site in Huddersfield to build the rugby league ground that he would like to put Huddersfield Giants into.
Is that down by, or is that what is the car park that's currently used by Huddersfield Town? Is it by the car park?
Yeah, no, it's the car. It is a car park, but it is large.
It's the car park itself. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah. I thought there obviously for the Lincoln game last season, but surely the club aren't going to want to get rid of that because it's a useful, well, firstly income.
The club don't own it.
Do they not?
No.
With
This is
Renton
why
then,
this
shocking.
situation is very, very complicated, and it's taken God knows how many years to sort out. Basically, that car park and that land is owned. Well, it's supposed to be owned by the council, but nobody actually knows because it's not stated anywhere. So it was one
This
of
is
the
where the
bones of
land registry comes in useful. I've been doing
Yeah,
a lot
but-
of digging with this myself recently.
yeah. But it's not. I don't think it's fully stated who exactly owns the land. So it is within the club sale when Nagel wants to buy the John Smith Stadium, and Davey obviously wants to buy the site to build the Giants Stadium on. So whilst the Giants are going to the share, it is a very still temporary measure. However, that has now slowed everything up for Kevin Nagel to buy the stadium because until Ken Davey has a deal with the council, he won't be signing any deal with Kevin to sell the John Smith Stadium to Kevin. So it's a very complicated situation, really, and I've summed it up very badly there in 30 seconds. But we could genuinely.
I got you. He won't sell the John Smiths to Kevin until he's got permission to buy the car park to build his own stadium.
Yeah, he won't sign the deal. It's not selling the John Smith. Sorry, it's signing the deal to say that the Giants will move out of the John Smith Stadium until he buys that site.
What I will say as an away fan that's been to the John Smith Stadium is that it would be a massive ball ache if that car park isn't there for away fans. Well, and town fans as well, to be fair, because I remember it makes, like I say, the trip to the John Smith Stadium, even if you charge a hell of a lot for an away ticket, was one of the simplest to kind of park up, pay your parking for a £5, turn up and quick walk to the ground. So it would be an absolute ball ache from an away fan perspective if you were to lose that facility out, of having that car park so close to the ground.
Yeah, it would be. But the reason that Kevin wants to buy the Odeon Cinema, which is next door, obviously the golf course, which is behind the driving range, which is behind the stadium, is that he wants to create like a leisure park. So there will be loads of parking eventually at the stadium. That's what he wants to do. Yeah, I mean, it's a very big plan. The other thing that goes into it all is obviously the council want to create this stadium to Station Way, which obviously costs millions and millions of pounds. That's why they're doing all this Huddersfield train station at the moment, and it's to funnel people through the centre of the town onto the stadium, for people to spend more in the town centre. It's a very large project. It's one of them white elephants that will probably never get off the floor. Truly, there's previous incarnations of this called HD1, and yeah, it's just a very. I think Kevin, from his recent comments, was disappointed. He wanted the deal to be already done. He still expects it to be done at the end of this season. At the end of this year, sorry. But, we have been saying that for the last 2 years, so I'm not expecting anything soon. So that's off the pitch. Obviously, they've not announced any kits at the moment. Season tickets have been extended once again for 30 days. To sell more tickets. I think that obviously we're making a few signings, and now knowing who our manager is going to be will definitely help sell.
Yeah, definitely.
I think if we'd have had somebody like David Wagner in charge, I think season tickets would have gone up tenfold. So it's going to be maybe a bit slower to sell them, and I think making signings early of the type that we are is definitely going to help. So I think that's the plan, really. That they're wanting to get business done as early as they can.
Absolutely. Anything else from town?
I don't think so. But Gaz has gone into darkness, so I don't know if Aki's had a power cut right now. But Gaz has gone into complete.
There we go.
There's not been a power cut.
Put some money in meter.
But yeah, I don't think there's anything else at the moment. Like I said, there's always rumours.
Well, I was about to
particularly
say, go on, hit us with a
if
couple of
players
the
signing.
rumours on the on possible arrivals before we go.
Yeah, well, like I said, Fraser Horsfall, I think that'd be a really good signing. Ex-Huddersfield Academy product. Went away. Obviously done
Very
really
well
well
at
at
Stockport.
Stockport. You know, he's captain there, massive centre back. You know, I watched him in the under-18s at Town, and he's really developed into a great centre back. I think he still needs maybe a pacey one at the side of him. Now, whether that's going to be Lomvik, who weirdly put a mysterious message on I think it was Instagram, even though he's not our player. He was like, like to the release list. He was like, sorry that you're all leaving the football club or something like that. And I was like, that's a bit weird for you to be putting that, but fair enough. So the rumour of him, the Paddy O'Connor one, obviously, I would like him, but that's not a massive rumour. I'd also like Roland. And also I think a Dauphin would be a good player, but there's a lot of free transfers out there at the minute where I think there's a lot of players being released. There's a lot of interesting players that we could sign.
Have we lost down?
Am I back?
Oh,
He's back. He's back.
We can hear you, but you're not moving for some reason.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
There he
Now
is.
you're back.
There he
You're
is.
moving. There he is. So yes.
now I'm back. Yeah. So that was it. Nothing concrete. I think Fraser Horsfall will probably sign. If I'm being honest, that's the closest one. So yeah.
Fair enough. Well, we will wrap it up there. We're not going to cover Leeds United because Jay and Brownie will be back tomorrow night with a Leeds United show. They'll be no doubt discussing the potential ins and outs from Elland Road. They will be on from, I think, shortly after 8 o'clock tomorrow night, maybe 8 or half 8 tomorrow night. So do check us out on social media. Of course, on YouTube, it will be ready on there for when we are going live with that one. From myself, though, and from Gaz, and they'll go on down, see what have you got.
I just wanted to say that I've been to Milan recently, and the new AC Milan training kit is very nice, by the way. So thank you very much,
I thought you were looking rather dapper this evening.
Yeah. Thank you to my missus for buying this. It's a very nice shirt. So if anybody is out there that is an AC Milan fan, do go and buy it because it's nice.
There we go. You're taking us to whole new audiences in Milan, aren't you?
Yeah.
Before we go, town talk in the office, perhaps.
It depends.
Maybe a couple more signings in. Maybe a director of football in.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where the boys are. We will announce any town talk shows going forward at some point. Probably in the next week or so. So yeah.
And Gaz, I'm sure we'll try and get a Bradford special as well lined up again in the not too distant future. Again, when the signings start pouring into Valley Parade, hopefully.
Yeah, when there's a bit more news, we will. Up until then, I'll just do my little videos with any bits of news that break. But once there's more to talk about, we'll get another city show on properly.
Absolutely. So thank you then from myself, from Steve, from Gaz. Big thank you to Chappers, Josh Chapman, the media man at Steeton AFC, and one of our non-league gurus for joining us from the start of the show. If you missed the start of the show, you can catch it back on the YouTube channel as well. But from myself and the lads, enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, and we'll see you soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show.